What's up guys, the Strong Boys 19 here and welcome to a new album review. Today I'm going to be reviewing the latest album from the band Soulfly, entitled Totem. This is the band's 12th studio album in the whole discography of one of my personal favourite yet underrated metal bands, Soulfly. This is the latest after the 4-year gap of new material of 2018's record Ritual. This is the latest album as well to be released through the Germany-based record label of Nuclear Blast Records. As much as I really do enjoy quite a lot of Soulfly's work on instrumentation, Max Cavalera has been one of my favourite metal musicians, pretty much for a lot of nostalgia reasons, and I always do admire and appreciate the classic lineup with the Cavalera period of one of my favourite bands of all time, Sepultura. Max Cavalera has always been this very passionate, optimistic, and just an approachable guy, because I know that Max Cavalera is really into making a lot of music, and Soulfly being his main baby after his departure from Sepultura in the mid-90s. Cavalera has been involved with many different projects, including Kill or Be Killed to Cavalera Conspiracy, one of my favourite albums of all time, Point Blank by Nailbomb, and he's just such this really productive musician that he is always in it for the music, and that's what I really appreciate about him for a lot of these reasons. This is the first Soulfly album to replace Mark Rizzo with a different lead guitarist called Arthur Rizk, and this also does involve, once again, Zion Cavalera being Max's son on the drums, and the latest to again feature one of my favourite bassists ever in metal, Mike Leon. This whole album is 10 tracks, 40 minutes across this runtime, and with the anticipation that's been going around quite a lot after what the album Ritual was, I was looking forward to dive into this album because, as I really do appreciate Soulfly, I am always onto the most favourite period of Soulfly for me on albums like Dark Ages and Conqueror, and I even dug quite a lot into the earlier period in Soulfly's reputation of sound and discography, especially like on the new metal period for the debut album and Primitive, and a few of the earlier ones. And I think with the later stuff of Soulfly's instrumentation, they were really finding various discoveries into different genres, something into the styles, into thrash metal influences to groove metal influences, and a few other stuff in between into what Soulfly has been doing for a long time. A lot of the songs onto this album are very aggressive, and I think that the more I was diving into these varieties of riffs, there are some that I do see that they are punishing, like the opening track of Superstition, for example, to Scouring the Vial. The first half of this album is very consistent with these really enjoyable chemistries into some dense performances, fantastic rhythmic drumming, and once again Cavalera still delivering his great and I would still think a distinctive yet iconic vocal distortion, growls, and his own way of putting his own spins of his aggressive performance into Soulfly's music. A lot of the musicianship is very, very good on this record, especially on the tracks like Filth Upon Filth to Rot in Pain, and even on the title track of Totem. On various occasions on the halfway point on this record, they can be pretty inventive as well, because there are moments where the instrumentation can go into this destructive, slower paced, doomy sections to breakdown moments. Some of them can be pretty repetitive and similar sounding, but that's not a really big drawback. Zion Cavalera's drumming on this album is absolutely amazing, and I always give him a lot of credit. As much as I do love Max's brother Igor, who is one of my influences in metal drumming. But Zion Cavalera's drumming was punishing, bashful, intensifying, violent, and stylistic. He has improved so much as a drummer because I think he's one of the newer special key moments into this newer period of Soulfly's instrumentation. And you can't go wrong with Mike Leon to this point because Mike Leon is a phenomenal bassist and his skills are just through the roof. He can just do anything from slapping techniques to finger-picking style, and his tone is glorious. And he even worked with Havoc for one album of Unnatural Selection. He's just a skillful, terrific bassist, and I think one of the best parts on this album is Arthur's lead guitar work, because it is some beautiful distorting tones, and his skills are mesmerizing. As much as I really appreciate the previous lead guitarist, Arthur, with this amount of talent on this album, his lead guitar work was wonderful and completely stupendous to hear these amazing tones. The only thing I will say is that there are a few songs on Totem to be pretty forgettable and not as strong as others. Like, I'm not really diving into Ancestors as much, or even Ecstasy of Gold. So I think those two tracks, to me, are my least favourites. The instrumentation on Soulfly 12 is beautiful. I really do love the melody onto the sound of the instrumentation, and I wish it could have been longer because it's 2.5 minutes. But I really appreciate that each Soulfly track, instrumentation-wise, is made into their own separate emotions and characters. The last track, Spirit Animal, is really one of my favourites, the longest track on this record at 9.5 minutes. And while the instrumentation through these first few minutes can be very slow, but it did build up into some suspenseful type of sound, and the heaviness just built in very comfortably. The guest appearances on some of the tracks, like John Tardy from Obituary, Richie Cavalera on the last track, Spirit Animal, as I've just said. He is the stepson of Max Cavalera. But overall, Totem by Soulfly is a really, really solid album that I do enjoy quite a lot. And let me know what you think of this album in the comments down below. Do you think that this is a very good album or one of your favourite Soulfly albums? I will say this. This album is not one of the band's best albums, but I've been very confident to say that I was mostly positive on this album, yet alone it's not one of my top favourite albums of 22, but in terms of the consistency onto Soulfly's discography, in my opinion, with my enjoyment across a lot of their albums, I would definitely recommend Totem if you want to dive into the later period across this band's work of albums. I'm going to give Totem by Soulfly an 8 out of 10, and that's personally all I would like to say with my review of this album by Soulfly. With that being said, thank you guys for watching, and I'll keep you guys posted for more videos in the near future.